Hey friends, in this video, I want to share something with you which is going to help you sell more of your products or services. It could be a product that you're selling online, or maybe you're selling something offline, or maybe it's a service that you're selling. It could be a writing service or a photography service. It doesn't really matter what you sell. When you use what you learned in this video, you are going to see that people are buying more of your product or service. Now, one of the challenges we run into as creators is when we try to increase our prices, people don't buy. But when you use what you learned in this video, you will start to see that people are continuing to buy. In fact, they're buying more of your product or service. In fact, if you have to close the doors to your course, or maybe you run out of stock with your physical product, you will start to see that people are getting on to your waitlist. So how do you do it? Well, it all comes down to this one secret. In fact, I can tell you one thing, it's not a secret. It's actually something that we all know, but yet a lot of us don't use this. And before we went on to talk about it, here is something I want to ask you. Hot cookies, puppies for sale, the Cadillac. What is common amongst these three things? Now, let me break that answer for you. All of these three products sell like hotcakes. Now, I know you're probably wondering what this car is, and I'll tell you a little bit about it just in a minute. But when you actually go to a cookie store, people who are interested in buying these cookies just cannot hold back. They just go and buy these cookies. The same happens when you go to a pet store. If you're looking to buy a puppy, then when you actually hold a puppy in your hand, chances are that you are going to end up buying it. But here's a story about this car that you saw. It's a Cadillac. In fact, the story goes this way. Back in the early 1900s, as soon as the World War II got over, Americans suddenly started to see a lot of wealth. And this led to them wanting to buy bigger, wider, longer cars. And that led to a bunch of automakers trying to introduce some really cool cars like this one, which is the Cadillac. So Cadillac sold like hotcakes. And that's simply because these automakers knew the secret. Now, what is the secret? Well, the secret is very simple. It's called desire. When you use this powerful emotion in your products or your promotions or anything to do with what you sell, you will start to see that people are now buying more of your product or service. Now, this is not rocket science for you to understand that desire actually is a powerful emotion, but the fact is that many entrepreneurs or most entrepreneurs and marketers and creators don't use this desire in their products or services. And in this video, I want to show you how to systematically uncover these desires in your specific market and how to systematically use these in your products and services. So let's get started. All right, before we went on to look into the process in detail, I really want to stop quickly and talk about a very important element of market research, which is where you start doing the market research. One of the advice that I've received and I've given to, and I've seen a lot of people talk about, is start with the problem, right? I mean, that's a great place to start. Yes, it is indeed a great place to start. But then in the context of doing research around desire, the question often comes down to why are people in that problem in the first place? Which is when you need to start thinking beyond the problem. So which is what I want to really focus on. Oftentimes, the reason that people are in the problem in the first place is because of the desire, right? I mean, because people desire something inside their hearts and they want to get to a certain result. That's the journey that people are always having. And in the process of taking that journey, they realize that they come across speed bumps that slows them down. So that's the important context that I want you to get here in the context of the research that we are about to get into. So to put things in a different way, you look at this whole idea of desire and result and pain somewhere in the middle. You can see that the reason people do things is because of the desire. That's the why. The pain or the result is nothing but the what. What is that pain that they go through, or what is the result they want to get in? But then why are they going through this pain in the first place? Why are they getting to this result in the first place? That's the desire. Really quick example, recap from a few minutes back. I talked about the American auto market in the 1950s after the World War. Desire there, if you look at my screen here, is the want to flaunt their pride, masculinity, and power. That was the desire. Technically, that's why people were doing what they were doing. That's why people went out buying things that were big. They were buying televisions that were big, likewise cars. And why? Because in this case, in the context of cars, because we talked about the car a few minutes back, They wanted to basically get from one place to the other faster, and for which they needed more powerful cars, because now that they wanted to get from one place to the other faster, they had a lot more luggage and a lot more people to travel with, and the cars needed more powerful engines. And yeah, the pain that they incurred at that point is because of the cars that were manufactured from pre-World War era, and they looked more like horse carriages. So they really needed to get past this pain, because they really were driven by the desire to flaunt their newfound pride and masculinity and power and a lot more. So that's a quick recap of the example that I brought up early on. With that said, let's now jump and look into a couple of examples. Hopefully, we'll be able to cover a couple of examples, but let's start with the first one here. The goal of this example, again, is for you to understand how to get started with finding desires in your market. We may not be able to really find all the desires in the market, and it's technically not possible to do that in a short video, but I wanted to tell you the approach step by step, so you know exactly how to go about doing this for your market or for your business. So let's start with the first example, which is the niche here is fitness. Who am I? I'm a fitness and nutrition expert. Goal here is for me to launch an info product offer. Target audience is men and women over 30, 35, 40. Product or offer here, really not too sure what that product is going to look like or what the offer is going to look like, but I do have some idea in terms of who I'm going after here. Again, men and women, it's a very broad definition, but at least some semblance of target audience is there. It's not completely blank at this point. So the goal for this example for me is to find the desires of the market. Basically, what I'm trying to understand here is what are really people wanting in this fitness niche, especially what are these men and women or somewhere in the middle ages, 35, 40, really wanting to do, and what can I do to them to help them with this journey from their desire to result as a fitness and nutrition expert, right? So that's the goal here. So that's the offer, hopefully, when I'm done with this exercise, which probably we're not going to do in the context of this video, but let's hopefully look at the process here. So the approach that I'm going to take is very simple. It's going to first find out the pains, second, map the desires to these pains, and third, shortlist the offers, right? That's the high level approach that I'm going to take. So some of the phrases. So at this point, you need to really figure out what phrases are people using to define their pains or to define their problems or to define some topics in their niche. Or we don't talk about niche when people look for solutions to problems, but then what are the topics that people are really looking for help with? And yeah, that's what you're really looking for. So phrases that I'm going to use here are strength training over 40. That's the first phrase. Second is fitness and childbirth. Third is travel, workout. Like you see here, I'm moving through this systematically. So we're talking about men and women in the Middle Ages. So this is for men and women. Fitness after childbirth, mostly women. Travel, workout, men and women both. Again, so these are the phrases. Just bear with me for a few seconds here. I'm going to walk you through a tool that we're going to use to do this. Finally, end of this exercise, our goal is to find the answers to 10 questions. The first 5 questions are what you see on the screen. What is the biggest problem or pain for this market? What are their desires and dreams? I don't have to explain these 2 questions. How urgent is their need to satisfy the desire? Urgency, you're right? I mean, how badly do people need to get to the result? How intense is the pain? How bad the pain is? What is the degree of demand to be satisfied? How much are people demanding the result? How many people are doing it? To what extent are people really going to get the result? All of that. Questions 6 to 10. Is this long-term pain or will it exist longer into the future? It's a very important question, again, to figure out if this is something that's more chronic versus very symptomatic and short-term. How frequent is that pain? Like, is this every morning, every minute, all the time? Or is this just shows up once in a week? Does the pain have other solutions today? How many people have this desire? Don't kill yourself to figure out how many people have this desire. It's humanly not possible to find out that answer, but from your research, you'll be able to at least make a educated guess as to how many people could potentially be having this desire. Sometimes you'll find some market numbers, which is too early at this point. We're still in the desire phase, but then hopefully a few steps further down the line, there might be some statistical evidence that you can find. So our quest is to find answers to these 10 questions. So with that said, let's get down to business. So to do this, what I'm going to do is use a tool. In this case, I have a tool, which is basically an Excel spreadsheet that, as you see on my screen, this tab, there are a few questions here on the left. Why are you doing this research? Well, I'm doing this research to enter a new market. You could use the same tool to do a few other things like creating lead magnets, creating bonuses, creating content, creating sales letters, email copy, which is right now outside the purview of this video. But hopefully, if you're interested, let me know in the comments. I'll be able to create some videos to show you and walk you through how to use the same tool for these other purposes. What is the niche and who is your customer? We saw this in my slide a few minutes back. An important note about the customer here is you might not have a clear definition. Like you saw me say, men and women somewhere in the middle ages is fair enough to start. And then these are the 10 questions that you see here. So you don't have to find the answers right now. Obviously, the whole idea of doing this research is to find the answers to these questions, but we don't do it very like Q&A type. We just go and start doing the research the way you're going to see me do it. So I'm going to the tab here called Research Tools, where on the top you have here, enter your keyword that you want to research. Now, this keyword, like I said, could be about a pain point. It could be about the desire. It could be about some topics in the market. It could be anything that you think is more relevant to begin your journey with. You have to start your journey somewhere. And I would start my journey if given an option with these areas for keywords. And then there is a variable, which is right now out of the context of this video, but again, if you're interested in knowing how to use this tool for other kinds of research, like, for example, copy research or audience research and things like that, then let me know. I'll create a separate video or separate videos to walk you through some of these things. But there's some variables that you can add to the keyword tool to basically make this tool work a lot better. For the context of today's video, I want to stick to a few of these tools. There are plenty of tools here that you can use, like, for example, in Google Search, Google Trends, Pinterest Search, LinkedIn Search. Now, one could argue that, like, hey, these are basically searches that you're going to execute on these different platforms. Yes, but from practical perspective, we often overlook these different things, right? And there is no systemization of market research, which is what I'm trying to do. And that's the reason I'm passionate about creating such tools. For the context of our market research to find out the desires in the market, I would start with a few tools and use a few tools for this video at least. First is Google discussions and forums. The second area that I would look for desires is Twitter. Third place is Facebook groups, right? These are the places that I would look for because these are places where you can actually find some really interesting insights from people. So before we get started, we need to use a keyword. So I'll go back to my phrases list. So strength training over 40. That's the first keyword I'm going to start with. Strength training over 40. It's going to open a fresh new tab with the results. So this is, as you see here, strength training over 40. So as you see here, there is a lot that I can start to learn from this one search here. For starters, I'm interested to see the places that these discussions are happening. For example, as you see here, video for tagged over 40. First insight here, the strength training guide for women over 40. So again, there are some interesting insights that you can uncover even in terms of what people are creating for this market. So it looks like women over 40 in strength training is definitely something that should be in my radar. So if I'm doing this research for my business, what I would be doing is I would go down to one of these sheets and start jotting down. For example, right in the column at the top, I will say the keyword, and then right down below, I will say who are the people and what are the kinds of insights that I'm discovering, which is, in this case, there is a guide being created for strength training for women over 40, training for older athletes. Now, older athletes is a very interesting sub-niche to focus on. Strength training for endurance sports. I don't know what 4DB is. Perhaps it's some sort of a training. Mass gain up to 40. That's another interesting insight. Before we went on this, I really want to go back to the sheet and this question right here in the beginning, which is, what is the base emotion in your market that you want to focus on? Now, this is a very important question to start with, and you need to do this right before you went on to do your research. And for help, I have a tab here called List of Emotions, which basically has a couple of categories of positive and negative emotions. Of course, these are not all-encompassing. They are some of the most recurrent emotions that I have come across in different markets. So The reason you need to pick the base emotions is because desire research is all about emotion research, right? You're trying to understand what is the emotion that's driving these people to do different things in the market. So you need to figure out what your base emotions are that you start with. For example, in this market, I'm more inclined to use something like fear, regret. Like, for example, I regret having not done strength training in my 20s, and hence I want to do it right now in my 40s, right? Something like that. Or there is some sort of insecurity. Maybe you're 40 and you're not married, and there is an level of insecurity about not being fit or not being healthy enough to find someone. So start with the base emotion or few base emotions. Ideally up to 3 is a great place to start. I'll go back to the search results here in the discussions. Mass gain after 40. Let me quickly go here and see what these people are really talking about. Avoid giving myself a heart attack. They want to do something, but there's a fear of a heart attack. So how to do it safely, especially regarding nutrition, right? So this is a great place to start. So again, you can go through this to actually find more. You'll find very interesting insights again, if you want to go down that route. Let's go down this search results page more. And so there is a better to have split workouts or full body workouts. Split versus full body. Again, people are more conscious. They want help. That's another thing that you want to take note of to say that people need help with workout routines. Performance decline over 40. So that's another fear in play. They're worried about performance declining over 40. So that's an interesting place that you want to get to. Again, you can get down into these forums and find out more details about what people are wanting. Question about muscle mass after age 43. Again, weight training, dressage riding. Does weight training mess up your guitar skills? This is a beautiful sub niche, like weight training for musicians, right? Triathletes. That's another sub niche you could potentially go. So again, I'm not saying everything that you find on this page is going to be relevant. At least you need to spend some time going through each one of them. So that's the way I would start off when I'm using something like discussions. The other place that I recommended, going back to research tools here, is to go for Twitter. Great reason for you to go to Twitter is to find more people in your niche. For example, they could be your future audience. They could be influencers that you want to reach out to, maybe when you want to promote your product, or you can find collaborators there that you can collaborate with. The third place that I recommend you go is to Facebook groups. So you'll see that there are so many different groups available, but then only challenge is you need to go and join these groups in order to get started. So you need to do that. And of course, there are some interesting sub niches that you can find here. Strength training for swimmers, for women, functional strength training, calisthenics, and so on and so forth. So that's what I would do to do the research here. So the question is, what happens after we are done with this research? You come back to these 10 questions and answer these 10 questions. Once you find the answer to these questions, your job is to go on to using these insights to in this case, why we started this, to find out a niche and find out the offer. So it's now time for you to decide on your niche. You could end up saying that I'm going to be focusing on strength training for women over 40 who have already done and tried and failed with something, and so on and so forth. Your offer and positioning and headlines and names. That's what you would potentially be using this insight. I just picked out these couple of courses. These are podcasting courses. They would give you a good idea as to how you can use this insight to come up with your positioning and your name. Podcast production course. And also, this is another course by Flynn, another influencer in the space. Again, he has something called as Power of Podcasting. I love both these courses, by the way. But the question is, who it's for? Learn how to edit podcasts like a pro with the Adobe Certified Professional. So it's basically saying results that you can get when you're done with this is you'll be able to edit podcasts like a pro. And that's because Certified Professional is teaching you how to do it. If you go through the copy here, you'll find out that it's all about audio production, right? Because that's the guy who's teaching you. His background, he spent in the production room, so he knows exactly how to go about editing your podcast, so he's going to teach you that. Then come to the other course here, then a step-by-step course to launch a successful podcast that gets found and grows your online brand. So the result here is it'll help you grow your online brands. That's why you would want to sign up for this course as opposed to the earlier course, because the positioning is that he is going to help you build an online brand, whereas that guy is going to help you edit your podcast better, right? So that's the difference here. That's the way you can use what you learn through your exercise into, say, positioning your brand and also perhaps finding names for your brand. So in this case, he just calls it podcast production course, right? I mean, if you are someone who wants to build a brand online, a podcast production course is not going to cut it. Whereas maybe power of podcasting, I'm not sure what power of podcasting has to do with online brand, but I think at least if you know Pat Flynn is doing it, then you know that he's not a production guy. He's an entrepreneur and he's going to help you build your brand online. So that's how you can use this for your positioning and perhaps name as well. Couple of more examples here really quick, which is something that I just came across very recently. If you really look at this, right, I mean, these are results for me looking for a 3.5mm to Type-C cable, right? So 3.5mm is what you find in a headphone jack. So a headphone jack to Type-C, because most of laptops and mobile phones are use Type-C as a port, but they don't have an audio jack any longer. So I was looking for something that will help me bridge this gap. So 3.5mm to Type-C. As you see here, I found a bunch of results coming down here. This is in India, 329, 349, 99. So this is for mass market, right? 3.5mm is what most of us know because that's what is written in audio. If you buy a headphone in the packaging, you'll find a 3.5mm. So everybody knows 3.5mm, but then nobody knows the other name for 3.5mm is TRS, right? What does it have to do with the 3.5mm? Well, that's the technical name for what you typically find in a classic headphone jack, the tip ring sleeve. That's the three parts of a headphone jack. That's what I'm looking for when I say TRS to USB-C, and yet I get results. But an important thing to note here is the pricing here and the brands that actually bring this up. These are sponsored posts, but let me go down here. You will see that the brands here are Boya, Rode, and these are coming up only now because I searched for TRS to USB-C. So they basically cater to people who are more closer to audio aficionados, if that's the right way to pronounce it. So that's the market that they're catering to. So when you type for TRS, they show up their wares and you will see that their pricing is $22.99 as opposed to $329 and $349, right? It's more expensive. So again, how can you use your insights that you discover to come up with your pricing? Because your market is now more upmarket than people who are more serious into whatever niche you are. So that's another tip I really thought is worth sharing with you because I found this pretty interesting. A power tip here, which I was surprised to see here, is interestingly enough, or I've never tried this keyword in the past, but then if you see 3.5mm to Type-C, I use a plugin for my Google Chrome. It's called Keywords Everywhere. So when you use this Keywords Everywhere plugin, it actually gives you a bunch of insights on the keywords you're using to search. It works on Google, in multiple platforms, Google Search. Again, it works on Amazon as well. So as you see, I type 3.5mm to Type-C, and it shows the volume here is basically how many people are searching for this keyword every month. It says 2,900 every month. And it says CPC, which is cost per click, is 0.02 cents. And the competition, forget about the competition in this context, 0.02 cents, but basically it's very cheap to find clicks here. And 2,900, that's a lot of search. But then if you go to TRS to USB here, which is basically a more niche market, you'll see the volume of search is 140 per month. And the cost per click is 0.11 cents, which is pretty interesting to me because it also says how much of a difference these two keywords make. So which also goes back to the research that we're doing there. You know, if you're creating content, then probably you're better off creating 3.5mm to Type-C related content. If you're doing something around audio, of course, if it doesn't matter, it doesn't really matter in the context of nutrition that we're talking about. But I'm glad that we could find that bonus tip there. So that's how you go about doing your research. Now, if you are interested in one more example, I'll probably have an extended version of this video available in the future. If you're interested, let me know in the comments. So that's all I have for now. I hope you found this useful. And if you're interested, of course, get a copy of this spreadsheet right down in the comments. So I really hope you found this useful. Here is everything that we saw in this video from the beginning. We started with that example in terms of what's common amongst these three images that you saw on my screen with the car, cookies, and puppies. And I walked you through a bunch of slides where I showed you everything from why it's important to start with desire. We talked about pain, desire, result, and then we looked at the example of the auto market. And then I walked you through my process. I showed you my spreadsheet that I used to do this research. If you're interested in a copy of that, I'll find a link to that spreadsheet right below this video somewhere in the description. And I also showed you ways that you can go about using that tool specifically for the context of doing desired research, right? I mean, I also showed you a few examples in terms of how you can use what you find in these research to what you have in your product. So we saw examples of podcasting courses, naming, positioning, and also some Amazon results. And I showed you how you can potentially use what you find in this research and incorporate it inside your product. Hope you found this really useful for your business. Thank you. If you liked this video, leave a comment right below and let me know if you'd like me to show 2 more videos on this. So that's all I have for you in this video. I'll see you in the next one. So then just make sure you subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for updates.